Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me is a man who kicked us all off with WandaVision back when this show launched. He also covered She Hulk and Secret Invasion, which some people would say, unfortunately, had to cover Secret Invasion. It's Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
It's going well. We have a new show to talk about, and I thought, who better to have on than the man, the legend, who kicked us all off with WandaVision back in 2021, early 2021, 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years, well, about 3.5 years ago, that it was like the third episode of the whole show when we kicked off with WandaVision. So, um, great to have you back on, Casey, and talking about a continuation of that show.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I forgot it had been so long with WandaVision until
Yeah.
they brought it up in the show. And I was like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
been 3 years since
3 years.
WandaVision. Wow.
And we also have a lot of other cast members back in this. We'll get to that as we go through it, but I was kind of surprised with how many people they got back for it. I have WandaVision on Blu-ray as well.
I
That
I
came
do
out
I do
more
too.
recently. Oh, you did get it.
Yes,
That's right. That's
I
right.
did manage
Yes.
to pick that up on disc.
I wish I had a chance to rewatch it before this show, though, because I didn't realize there'd be so many ties to it. Like, I figured, obviously, it's the same writers, it's continuing Agatha, but we see so many of the people of Westview back that I had to kind of remind myself who they were.
I was thinking the same thing that I wish I would have remembered earlier. I would have because WandaVision's only what 8, 9 episodes, something like that.
9, just like this show is.
I
Yep.
would have made more of a concerted effort to watch to do a rewatch real quick before starting this, but I forgot. And next thing you know, it was like right there, starting up on us, and I was like, man, uh, man, I can't. I'm not gonna be able to rewatch. Oh well, like I get the gist of what happened. Like I was there for it. I still have it. I can watch it later. But
Yeah. Yeah. It ties in pretty heavily to Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness as well,
I should have watched. I
which
was
we'll
thinking about
talk
that as
about.
well. I should have watched that as well. And once again, just time got away from me. And
Yes, that's the thing. Like, if we had had more time, we could have done a proper like rewatch up to this, done something for the podcast. But
maybe done like a
look, it's
speculation. Yeah.
it's tough, especially when they have been releasing so much stuff. Like I used to rewatch all of the movies before the next movie came out, but it got to a point where shows are coming out in the middle of the movies coming out, and it was too much work to do that every single time.
Look, I did one watch through a few years ago of the Infinity Saga from Iron Man up until the last Spider-Man movie.
Hmm.
Or no, not up. It was up until
Far From Home,
Far From
yeah.
Home. That I guess got, even though it was probably the next phase, it concluded the Infinity Saga. And they included it in the box set, which is a great box set, by the way. I love it. Um, I was off on vacation, so that took me. I did it over the course of either a week or 2 weeks, and I mean, I was watching like 3 movies a day, and some of them
Yeah.
started to get long. I still kind of. It's the only time I've ever seen. What was the second Thor movie?
Dark World.
It's the only time I've ever seen Thor: The Dark World. Still can't tell you what that movie's about. Kind of fell asleep through part of it. Typically, I'll start something back over. Not gonna lie to you, Dark World. I was like, I get the gist of it. We're
It's
moving on to the
it's
next one.
not the best. It's my least favorite of them all, I think.
So,
Dark World.
but that was a daunting task. Like, I think I told you over that about that. Like, that was
Yes.
just a very daunting task, especially at the time in technology now. So, I did them in order that they were released, right? And then while I'm watching it, I can like pause and look up stuff on IMDb or hidden stuff that's in there that, comes into play later and all this other stuff. So I can pause it, take a minute here or there, check this out, look at this, realize, oh, okay, that's what that means, so on and so forth. But still, man, 20 some odd movies. And like I said, that's just the Infinity Saga. It was just up until Far From Home. That was daunting. And I want to do that again, but I don't know if I'll ever have the energy to do that one again. That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, you might have to just do it at a slower pace, right? Watching a movie every day or every other day type of thing. Just have it take a little bit longer. Well, we're here to talk about Agatha All Along, a spinoff of WandaVision and part of the fifth phase of the MCU.
What phase
And
was WandaVision in? Was WandaVision in phase four?
four.
So
Yep.
okay, so if that was part of phase four, because I was trying to figure that out, like, okay, I know this is continue on. I couldn't even remember what phase we're in right now. Because things have gotten so weird and wacky, and then they've had to cut stuff in the pandemic, and then they're only releasing
Yeah.
two things this year or something like that. So we're in phase five still right now.
Yep. Phase five. Phase six, I think, starts. I forget. But phase six will end with Secret Wars. So that'll be the end of the multiverse saga, and it'll be phases 4 through 6. But okay, Agatha All Along, created by Jack Schaefer, also was the showrunner. Jack Schaefer, starring Catherine Hahn, Joe Locke, Deborah Jo Rupp, Aubrey Plaza, Shashir Zamata, Alian, Akui Akpowasili, sorry if I butchered that, Patty Lupone, Maria Dazia, and Paul Adelstein, and Miles Gutierrez Riley. Theme music by Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez. They did the music, of course, for Agatha All Along in WandaVision. And they also did the music for Frozen, and composer Christoph Beck, who also composed the music for Frozen, and Michael Paraskives, and it premiered a 2-episode premiere September 18th, 2024 on Disney Plus. And the episodes we are talking about are Seekest Thou the Road and Circle Sewn with Fate, Unlock Thy Hidden Gate, which were directed by Jack Schaefer. Jack Schaefer wrote episode 1, and Laura Donney wrote episode 2. All right, so let's really quickly just kind of talk about the build up to this. It's been a long road. October 2021, production started on this to start building on it. I think they announced it sometime in 2021 after the success of WandaVision. 3 years later, here we are. A lot of people, this has become the show where they're like, do we really need a show about Agatha?
Is it even coming
And
out?
yeah. Or what is the actual title, right? So I guess just walk us through that, Casey, on were you excited for this going into the show?
So without a doubt, yes. I think I talked about it when we did the finale of WandaVision. I think I told you I really developed a thing for Catherine Hahn. I thought she did a fantastic job as Agatha
This
Harkness.
episode might have been for you then. Yeah.
I think she did a fantastic job as Agatha Harkness in WandaVision. I thought they did a really good twist, even though some people like you who knew the story in the comics were able to kind of suss that out of who she really was. But I think they did a really good job of setting that twist up that led into the end of WandaVision and leading into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I think I told you I wanted more of Agatha. I thought maybe they would go kind of like with a prequel or something to tell us where she came from or whatever. But yeah, I was up for it from the get go. Uh, I even followed along with all 6 or 7 titles that they went from. Um, some of them, I don't know when the trolling started. I'm sure towards a certain point they just started trolling us with leaked titles of what the series was going to be. Um, I'm sure initially there was probably some truth to what the titles were, and then they just were like, let's just mess with these guys.
That's what I think too. I think the first title, which was Agatha
House of Harkness.
House of Harkness, I think that was going to be the title, and then
I
it just developed into something else,
I
and
even
then
think
there, and
maybe the
then
second one, because was the second one like Darkhold Diaries or something like that?
yeah, no, I think that may have been a later one. I forget what. Okay, here it is. Agatha House of Harkness, then Coven of Chaos.
I think that one might have been another one where they decided, okay, maybe let's make it more of an ensemble thing, right?
Yes, and then I think once they started changing it to Darkhold Diaries and stuff is when they started playing into we're gonna change the title
Yeah,
every
couple of months
so
or whatever. Yeah,
often, and then we're gonna change it to Agatha All Along, as in like this was the title all along because the song and all that. So, but I do think the first two titles were probably real titles.
yeah. I'd go with maybe the first two. After that, I think that's when, because I gotta give them credit. Their social media team does work really well with them as far as promoting this stuff, and regardless of how these leaks or whatever come out. So they these guys get paid a lot of money to do these things, and they're very smart people. I've talked about it before, so I think yeah, the first couple were probably legitimate, and then once they saw how much interest would drum up, and it would kind of bring it back to the forefront of consciousness there, then they started, hey, let's see what else we can do, and started messing with us.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. Well, we also are getting another spin-off of WandaVision as well, based off of Vision, which originally was, I think, going to be produced by Jack Schaefer, but is moving to being produced by uh, one of the writers for the new Star Trek show, Picard, and he also wrote 12 Monkeys, which was a really great sci-fi
The
show.
show or the movie?
Um, the show,
Okay.
the show,
That was
based
on
off of the
that was on the
movie.
Sci-Fi Channel, right?
Yes, it was really good. Um, so that's who's kind of going to be in charge of Vision Quest, which I actually think that title is going to change too, because that was a title from before the new writers came on. So I
That
think
was the
that'll
original
change.
title, wasn't it?
Yeah, Vision Quest was the original title, so I think that'll change now that they have new people on it. That's just my vibe on that. Okay, so I guess let's dive into it. This show uh, was started off very similar to WandaVision, right? Where we have a character who is experiencing a false reality and have to be awakened to the real reality. And we get a fake title, Agnes of Westview, right? And we get a fake title card. One part that did make me laugh is where it says it's like based off of the Dutch series WandaVision or whatever, like in the title card. But so 5 minutes in, you said you were already loving it, Casey.
Yeah, I literally
What part was that? Yeah.
it was, I think when I paused it, it was like 5 minutes and 16 seconds in. So it was literally 5 minutes into it. It was still when she was this police officer, right, who's dealing with everything. I think we had already been introduced to one of Aubrey Plaza's characters by this point, right? Um, so one, I loved. I haven't watched in a while, but I loved Law and Order SVU. I thought that was a great show. Um, I haven't watched any. There's like 8,000 Law and Orders. I've tried to give some of the other ones a try. Never really my thing. I've seen some crime procedurals here and there. I used to love the original CSI, the one that was set in Las Vegas with William Peterson as Gil Grissom and Sarah Seidel and Catherine Willows and Warwick Brown and those guys. It's one of my all-time favorite shows. I would watch this show if they made this show. I would watch this show. Like that's what had me intrigued. Like, and as it changed, the filming of it was a little different than the rest of the episode because it kind of gave it more of a gritty kind of vibe. Let me ask you this: you might know the answer. I don't know. If you had to guess, how old would you say Aubrey Plaza?
I know this answer. She's like 40,
She's
isn't she?
40 years old.
Yeah, I just looked her up the other day, and I was actually shocked. She was 40.
One, she looks incredibly young still, right?
Mm-hmm. She
Two,
doesn't look like she's aged from
April Ludgate.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like we all know her as April Ludgate, right? I know she has done many other things. I guess she received a ton of praise for the character she played in White Lotus on HBO. Yeah. I wanted to see her in the new what is the Child's Play movie. She played the mom in Child's Play, which was a little weird for me because I still remember her as April Ludgate, but I had to remember, like, this came out a few years back, so even if she was like 18, 19 when she played April, at the time she's probably got to be at least in her late 20s, early 30s, right? Probably later than that. She's probably in her mid 30s when she's playing this character. So yeah, like she could legitimately have a couple of kids, and it's one of those things. Like I still see, you know, that teenage 18, 19-year-old April Ludgate. Did you like the interactions between her and Agatha? And did you kind of get the feeling of there might be more between the two of them that they were hinting at, but didn't show yet?
There's some history there, right? You think romantic history?
I think there's no doubt there's some romantic history between those two.
That's what I was thinking, because I know, like, outside of the show, they've been saying that this is like the gayest show Marvel's done. But you know what? A lot of I'll say to that.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think one of the quotes from her was someone had asked her like something about how gay it is or whatever, the level of it, and she said, "I sure hope so. That's the only reason I signed up for it." Now,
right,
she was probably partially joking in that, but I think there was partially some truth as well.
Here's my problem with that, just in the sense of the way they promote some of these shows. I feel like I've heard this about a lot of projects, and then it's so negligible. You know, I remember them saying it about Ragnarok, how Ragnarok is like, you know, that way, or Love and Thunder was like really supposed to be gay, and guess what? They cut out most of the hints between Jane and Tessa Thompson's character, and it turned out to not really have that. Plus, I feel like they'll say stuff like that a lot, but we know a lot of times they end up not pulling the trigger because you get
it's a Disney franchise,
like a scene, right? You get a scene like in Lightyear, or was it Force Awakens, where it's like two people in the background that they're able to easily edit out for China, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like when they kept saying this stuff pre-release, I'm like, you've said this so many times. Like I don't know if I actually believe you.
I think there might be more to this one based on the tension between these two characters. The young man there who
Teen, as she calls him Teen.
Okay, I have one issue with him, and it has nothing to do with his sexuality. It's about the fact that he's 16. Um, I think they could have easily just as easily made him 18, and he can go off gallivanting with adult women or whatever with no issue. I think there's way too many incidences of teachers and adult women having inappropriate relationships with teenage boys nowadays. Now, obviously, I don't think this is going to happen between him and any of the members of
No,
this.
he has a boyfriend. That's not. Yeah, that's
But
not really a
still, it's just
story.
the fact that he still is 16 years old, and it seems weird to me. I think that's something they could have just as easily moved him to 18 or whatever,
Yeah.
and that would have been that. Now, that could just be my sensibilities. I don't know. Now, I could be wrong for that, and I get it, but that's just the one thing I felt
There's a
off about today. And I
reason
was
I
like,
think he's 16. Okay,
I
and
think
that
so too.
is
We'll talk about it later. I think we're probably both thinking
yeah.
the same thing, but I was like, do you have to be 16? Like, and then I thought about it later, and then I was like, yeah, maybe he does have to be. But yeah, I would watch the show
So I
between
guess
those two characters.
here's my thing with the show so far. I really enjoyed the second episode. I think more than the first episode. Because while I love WandaVision, and some of this stuff worked for me at the beginning here, I feel like it's sometimes almost pulling the same trick twice, right? In the sense of we know Agatha is not Agnes and like she has to wake up. And we kind of, in my opinion, when I'm watching the first episode, I'm kind of looking at my watch like let's wake her up. I want the story to go somewhere. Like let's get it going type of thing. Cuz it worked in WandaVision because it was kind of like I feel like maybe because it was 3 episodes, thank God this one was not 3 episodes of her in this daze. Like they do snap her out of it by the end of the first episode. Um, but I think it worked because it was the first time we had something like that in WandaVision, and then in this time, I thought she'd kind of get snapped out of it earlier, or I'm sitting there like. I don't know, because it was more than half the episode, I think, where she's under the impression of being the cop still. And I just wanted to kind of move forward. Like let's kind of fast forward a little bit here.
I get that. Part of me wanted that too. Part of me was enjoying the cop aspect of her in that imaginary realm. But I think part of it too is just they always have to take into account there might be people starting fresh with this show. Like we just talked about, like it seems there's so much homework with the MCU now. Like if you're watching, like you go to watch a movie, there's at least one movie and at least one show you probably have to check out in order to kind of be caught up with, so you kind of know what you're going into, right? For the most part. Now it's not the case all the time, but like in theory with this, you had to know, okay, WandaVision and at least Multiverse of Madness. You know, there's a case there are people who might have just caught previews or might have been watching it with friends or family who don't have the love of WandaVision that we did or hadn't seen it. No, maybe that this could drive them to go watch those movies and shows, but I think I think because they have to take into account there are people who are starting fresh with this, they kind of had to let it simmer a little more before they broke it out, before they broke her out of the fog there, instead of just like whipping her right out. I did love when she kind of did come out of it, the flashback to her versions of her character of Agnes um, from WandaVision, even though they kind of spoiled some of that in the various trailers. Um, I think we're probably on the same thought here because we haven't talked about this up until we started recording. Do you think the dead body is the same person I do?
It's Wanda, right?
Okay,
Because we see Wanda Maximoff on
the toe
well
tag.
W Maximoff
Yeah.
on the toe tag, And when she's talking about hair being scarlet
The
red,
library
right?
book colored. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So what it's supposed to, and of course the library book spells out in all capital letters, if you take each one,
yeah.
Darkhold,
And then
which is the book that Wanda took.
something I saw
And
after the author. The author's name is
yes,
an
yeah,
anagram for where Wanda was killed.
yeah, Wundagore,
Um,
Wundagore Mountain. Yeah,
and as I was watching this initially, I was like, okay, there's a reason they're not showing this face. Like they were very deliberate with that, and I was like, oh,
yeah. They couldn't get Elizabeth Olsen.
possibly. Uh, we'll go into our speculations later. I'm sure we'll have a speculation portion there, but I have some speculations about that.
So I saw a lot of people confused on this too. They're like, "Well, if Wanda's dead and or like really dead, wouldn't the spell have lifted anyway?" But there is a quote from Doctor Strange in one of the movies that's like, uh, or maybe it's Ebony Maw in Infinity War. But what somebody says something about good luck lifting a dead man's curse. Like it apparently is something that's very tough to do still. So the fact that it's not like one of those things where you kill the person and the spell breaks.
Yeah,
So some people were trying to say that's proof that Wanda's still alive. I'm just saying that that's not necessarily true.
yeah.
Uh,
I want to
yeah.
know um when what is Aubrey Plaza's character's name?
Rio, but Rio Vidal. She here's what most people are speculating here, that she is a character called Black Heart. Okay? Because at
She
some
did
point
make
in the
mention
story
to
she
that.
says
Yeah.
about her heart being black, right?
Yes.
And then she also the clairvoyant lady wrote just a black heart
Yeah.
on the paper, right? When for the fourth name. Uh so that is what most people think that she
No,
is.
no.
Blackheart. That is a character originally that appeared in 1989 in a Daredevil run.
Okay.
Um I don't know much about them,
Okay.
but
That answers that question.
there you go. Yeah.
But I want to know more about some of this coven and things that happened in Salem and why Rio is not allowed to kill Agnes. Not that she just physically can't, she's not allowed to. Like there's something going on there with all that and I don't know what it is, but it has me intrigued.
Yeah, so here's something that's interesting about Blackheart. In the comics, it is the son of Mephisto. So remember back in WandaVision era, everything was pointing to Mephisto, right? That's what everybody's thoughts were.
Yes.
Oh, this is Mephisto. It's going to be Mephisto. And Mephisto never appeared. But Blackheart is the son. So in this case, would be the daughter. They are able to shapeshift. So I saw another interesting theory that maybe Rio is shapeshifting as Deborah Jo Rupp's character.
We're gonna talk about Deborah Jo Rupp here. We can do it now or we can do it when we get
But
to that portion. I have some
what I
thoughts on her.
also think is, I definitely think Rio was following them. The raven that she was staring at, the mouse in the mall, like the rat in the mall. I think these are Rio shapeshifting and keeping an eye on Agatha here.
Okay. So I looked up some stuff about the animals as far as what it relates to witchcraft. I thought that was a crow. Maybe it's a raven. I don't know. Crow symbolize
They're close.
transformation
They're
and
close to the
change,
same.
especially spiritual and emotional change. They're believed to be cleansers of both land and mind and can be seen as a sign of good fortune. They can also be omens of death and symbols of certain deities, particularly Morgan and Odin. Odin has ravens that are spies for him throughout the realms. Um, they're really symbolic throughout the world. Crows and ravens. They get mixed up. Crows and ravens get mixed up. They are different, but they are they do overlap. Um, they're often linked to death and can be seen as omens of death. Also said to be messengers of the dead and carry messages back and forth to and from the afterlife. Some Native American cultures associate ravens with their creation, see them as a sign of change or good fortune. They're also crows themselves are incredibly intelligent. People have managed to keep them as pets, and you can look up stories about people who have made friends with crows, who will bring them money and shiny things and orders for food. Rats have a significant place in witchcraft, both positive and negative, associated with resourcefulness, adaptability, survival instincts, reflecting their real world characteristics. Rats can, it doesn't take much, they can adapt to just about anything. They can chomp and eat through anything. Some people believe rats in your home could be a sign of negative energy or psychic attacks, or there could be practical reasons, such as you have a messy house, or someone around you might have some messiness. Rat symbolisms in rituals and spells for purposes such as enhancing adaptability, overcoming obstacles, promoting resourcefulness. For wolves, the Native Americans represents not only creation but death and rebirth. They would see the wolf retreat into the mountains and hills to get away from humans. They made the connection between wolves and spirits. In the Lakota language, the word for wolf, Sun Menitu, I probably messed that up and I apologize, means divine dog. If they appear in physical form or in a dream or meditation, they reveal you're using your instincts to grab a situation. They can also be used as an animal guide to help you deal with change you recently experienced. If the presence of a wolf feels threatening, pay attention to how your nature and emotions, because they can knock your balance or the balance of people around you. Animal power may appear such light to warn you of instincts from those belonging to somebody around. The power of the wolf said to bring forth instinct, appetite for freedom, understanding for importance of social connection. I wanted to do more, but I didn't have time today before we had to record. But so I was like, oh, those three animals mean something. Now it could have been Rio, it could have been the Salem Seven, because whatever it was spooked the hell out of Agatha.
Yes, I do think that's true too. So we have the Salem Seven, which I wanted to shed some light on for people. They first appeared in Fantastic Four 186 back in September of 1977.
Jesus.
Yes, almost 40 years ago, right? Or 50 years ago, almost 50 years ago. Okay. We had they were created by Len Wein and George Perez. Here's some interesting information. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you looked this up, Casey.
I didn't get
Do you know
around to
anything
looking up the
about
Salem
Salem 7?
7. I wanted to, I just ran
Okay.
out of time.
So all 7 are the children of Nicholas Scratch. Does that name sound familiar to you?
I've heard his name before. I can't figure out where.
It's the name of the rabbit from WandaVision and that we see in this episode. Okay? And it's severely hinted that Nicholas Scratch is Agatha's son. And in the comics, Nicholas is the son of Agatha. So that makes the Salem 7 her grandchildren. Will they keep with that in the MCU? We don't know, but I just think that's a fun connection to these characters, to our main Agatha Harkness for this show.
So the one thing I'll say I like about the MCU is they have. When did Marvel start making comics? The 50s?
Well, for the fan, okay, so the first ones that take place in like the actual universe of the Marvel universe is 1961 Fantastic Four, but They did make comics before that were not always superhero comics. Marvel's been around since 1939, but have gone by different names. Like Timely Comics is one of the
And
names.
then there
That's when
was
they
a
had like Captain
Comics
America stuff,
Code.
Namor.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But like the Marvel we know it, 1961.
Okay, so they're over 60 years old. So you have 60 years of history that you can pull from. And we've talked about this before. I don't have much experience in comics, but I know in that 60 years, you've had the same characters go through different runs, and different people have been in charge of the story and made tweaks here and there, or a cataclysmic thing changed the entire universe and everything starts all over. Or now we go to universe 725. Now we get to experience stuff over there, right? So the great thing is, for me, is there's all this history that they can pull from. So the MCU can pull bits and pieces from stuff here and there, or they can just come up with something completely different that says it's nothing against these stories that previously have been told, but we want to tell our own unique story involving these characters, the Salem Seven, right? Now,
right?
Maybe the Salem Seven are people who survived even though they didn't burn witches at the stake in Salem, right? That's a common misconception. They typically drown them, or yeah, they typically would drown them. It was typically where they would tie them up and throw them in a river or dunk them. If they survived, they were a witch, and then they would find a way to kill them. If they didn't survive, oops, my bad. Or there were other torture methods, but burning was not typically one of them. But so they could go with something where maybe these were 7 people in charge of things back then, or these were 7 high priests and witches from back then who managed to survive and escape, and who knows what. It could just be 7 variants of Agnes for all we know. But I like the fact that they can do a lot of different things.
I just looked into it a little bit more here. The creatures she's been noticing are the Salem Seven. So in the comics, these characters transform into different creatures. Like, okay, Bruticus turns into a lion-like humanoid with red horns. Gazelle turns into like a deer-like person. Okay, stuff like that.
Now we might see those in the woods
credits. Right, in the credits though, there are some that are credited as snake, crow, fox, rat, owl, and coyote. So these do seem to be part of the Salem Seven that she was and that, hey, maybe that is now a connection to why Nicholas Scratch is a rabbit as well. Maybe he was able to transform if they are his kids, right? Like this power comes from them. But there was a comic arc I just want to read real quick here that Salem 7 have managed to reverse the spells that locked them away from their enhanced forms, which greatly weakened Agatha in the process. We know Agatha doesn't have her magic right now. Part of that is because of Wanda, but
we know she's also wanted.
This is all stuff that could be played.
We know she's also wanted. Apparently the Salem Seven are hunting for Agatha, and we find out from Rio that they were supposed to be coming tonight. Like, Rio wasn't the only one that found her, so the rest are coming, which is where we get the Salem Seven. And like I said, that spooked her when she saw the crow or the raven, and then the wolf, and what was the other one? I forget what it was.
The rat.
Yeah, the rat.
Right.
So, that I'm definitely interested to see where the rest of these go, because one thing they talked about with this show was supposed to be kind of go into the horror realm, be a little more scary. Now, the first episode or 2 haven't scared me yet, but I can see it being spooky, and it is obviously the perfect time of the year for that. You have Halloween coming up, the fall weather and everything. So I hope they delve into that area more, and I'm definitely interested in seeing where that goes.
So I think that why they're after her has to be related to Nicholas Scratch, which is her son. she's constantly carrying around a locket that has a hair in it. I'm assuming it's her son's hair. They're when she meets with somebody, they say, "What are we having another?" And they see the teen, right? They say, "What, another child sacrifice type thing?"
Yeah.
I wonder if something went wrong with her son in that regards, and people are kind of holding that over her head or something. That's the only thing I can kind of think of why they're coming after her. That's my theory as it currently stands.
So, did you? You said before you talked about some of the characters from WandaVision Return. Um,
Yes.
there did you see one from another show we just recently watched? Did you recognize one?
Uh, from
The
didn't you
librarian
say this
was,
person's in?
yeah, Anya. The librarian was Anya from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That's what I was gonna say. I remember when we first watched it, you mentioned how she was in Buffy.
Yeah. Um,
That's interesting. I didn't recognize her again on this though. She does look so much
she
different. Like
does look
she's
a little
so
different. Yeah, she's a little older.
because it's like 30 years later.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Um,
um,
I don't remember.
and she was barely in this episode, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
yeah, we got she was in it as Dottie Jones,
Yes.
right? We
The
have
chief of police slash her next door neighbor. I don't remember him
yes.
from WandaVision. Not saying he wasn't. I just don't remember him. Uh, he might
You
have.
don't remember him? He was he was in it as one of the co-workers for Vision, I believe,
Okay, that makes sense. It's been, in all
in
fairness, it's
that
been 3
office.
years, so um, I kind of remember her. I
Um
remember Deborah Jo Rupp's character, and I remember the black guy.
yeah, Mrs. Hart, who we find out she's actually Mrs. Davis, right? That Mrs. Hart is what Wanda called her in her world. We had Herb though, right? David Payton, that's the neighbor that was uh cutting his garden and like hedges while Agatha was naked. Um, he was in WandaVision as well. Same thing with Phil Jones. That's the other guy, the chief of police. Um, Harold Proctor is what he's really known as, but Phil Jones was his WandaVision self. And we had Norm, who's also in this. But just a whole bunch of people that showed back up here from from WandaVision, which I thought made it feel really, really connected, which obviously the MCU is. But I mean, like, it was kind of nice to see those familiar
I
faces pop up.
I enjoy the fact that old Herb Jones there. Okay, so at some point after she awakens, she comes out of the house. She happens to be naked, right? She's gonna freak everybody out. Herb's trying to be polite, not looking, and then she has a conversation of how long have I been in this town, and that's where he brings up 3 years, right? And she mentions Wanda, and he's like, "Oh, we don't mention her name." So it's kind of like he what's the guy from Harry Potter there? He shall not be named or whatever.
Voldemort, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like a Voldemort type thing. And I get it; those people have been traumatized. Like Wanda, kind of trapped them in the town, made them do things to her will, of playing these other parts and various other things. Gave them other names, like you said. Deborah Jo Rupp's character had went from one name to another. But yeah, same thing. They won't mention her. They won't mention Wanda at all. We see later when she's walking by where Wanda's house was. There's graffiti on the foundation of where the house was, and she spits at the house and everything. So this town is definitely kind of still feeling the effects of going through this whole thing with Wanda.
All right, let's talk about. I don't really want to go like plot by plot. I want to kind of just talk as we're freewheeling it here. Let's talk about Teen. Every time he's trying to say his name, it's censored
Okay.
from some sort of hex.
I thought that was just going to be in the previews, or like I thought they were doing that because that was shown in one of the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
trailers. I thought they were doing that specifically for the trailers because it's like, okay, we can't give you all this information now. You got to watch the show. So I figured,
And I didn't watch a lot of the trailers, so when I just kept seeing him credited as teen, I thought that was press release stuff to say we're not saying who it
yeah.
is. But she actually calls him teen.
And then they showed the one where I think she asked him what his name was or who he was, and that's when not only does it go silent, but you get like the squiggly line over his mouth or whatever. And then you get later in the car where he's trying to give her some of his backstory, where all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
it mutes out. She can hear everything else. She can turn up the radio. She can hear what's going on in the radio. She can hear the ambient sounds of the street and everything around her, or at least we can, right? We can hear all those, but we can't hear him and the story he's telling her. So we still have no clue who he really is. I have some thoughts and guesses, but
Yeah, I have, I think, pretty sound guesses. This is the hot theory everybody has. But before I say that, do you want to share any of your thoughts before I?
I think mine is probably the same as yours and everybody else's. That I think this is one of Wanda's children. Um,
Yes, Billy. Billy is the popular pick here. Billy is a character in comics called Wiccan, as in Wiccan, who likes using magic. Um, and you know, I think this is who it is. Now, there is this complication too that Billy doesn't actually exist, right? Wanda made up her children and stuff, but something similar happened in the comics as well, where Billy Kaplan is his name, gets found and realizes he has memories of Wanda being his mother, and it's kind of a question on if he appeared as himself and aged up, or if the spirit of Billy and Tommy went into two other kids and almost erased their existence and became themselves. So, which means like this kid could be a normal kid named Billy that then, or something else, that then Billy spirit inhabits due to the magic, and now he has memories of being Wanda's son, but he never actually existed. So that's a possibility. The other possibility is the Billy we saw came in, came back, like it worked, bringing them over, came back, and then uh, got aged up and like lived underneath of some other people as their parents for a bit, while Wanda was dead for 3 years.
yeah. So there's the aspect of she made her children up in this universe, right? But in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, she was still trying to search for her children. And apparently, somewhere in one of these universes, some of these universes, her children did exist. Like, I don't know. Add into the fact of everything we got from Multiverse of Madness and go into Spider-Man No Way Home. No.
Mm-hmm.
What is it No Way Home? What's the last one?
No Way Home's the last one.
Okay, No
Yeah.
Way Home with all the Spider-Mens and all the worlds that came crashing down and people from other dimensions and other universes came in and out and all these other things. And at some point we had Vulture in the universe of who you would call it, Venom. He ended up in Venom's universe somehow,
Morbius, yeah.
and Morbius and all this other stuff, right? I don't know.
Yeah, that one's a mess.
But so this is where I think this is where I go back to what I said earlier. Of I didn't like the fact that he was 16. I thought they could have made him 18 just because it would have been more appropriate. But then, I mean, her children aged. She went from being pregnant to like having kids in WandaVision in a snap of a finger, and then her kids grew older.
Right.
So the aging in this universe in this show is completely different. So yeah, with the 3 years added, maybe he is 16, and that kind of fits. Now I'll get to one of my speculatory things here. I think he wants to travel the Witch's Road because he wants to be reunited with his mom.
So here's the thing, Casey. I think you're dead on because here's part of from the Wikipedia article about Billy Kaplan,
And I looked none of this up.
Wiccan.
This was just me. This is just wild
Yeah. So
speculation on my
no.
part.
Yeah. I think you're good. During their search for the Scarlet Witch, Wiccan is even more certain that he and Tommy are siblings. Both boys refer to each other as brothers, and Speed claims to be the older of the two. And they also refer to Scarlet Witch as their mom while searching for her. So that's part of the thing that they're doing in the comics is searching for her. In Children's Crusade #6, Scarlet Witch confirms that Billy and Tommy are the reincarnations of her sons. And when Wanda is discussing her life with a psychiatrist, she again confirms that Billy and Tommy are the reincarnated souls of her sons. However, seeing that they are teenagers, Wanda does not know if they were normal kids before her son's soul took over their bodies, or whether the spirits went back in time to be born and raised by different parents. And their goal in some of those stories is to find their mother or who they think is their mother, because again, there's the question on if they really are her children or not. But I think you're right. I think they want to walk the witch's road. I think that would tie in with the opening of the show with Wanda's body, right? And
With what he
like,
says, or one of them says, where if you get to the end of the road, it gives you what you want the most.
yes, and what he wants is to be reunited with his mother. That's what I would think. And another reason why I think this is Billy in the comics is famously gay and has a relationship with Hawkling, which is a character. And he got a phone call that said boyfriend
Or
right
boy
on the
F
home
or
screen,
something
or
like that.
boyf.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
boy F, boyf. I guess that's an endearing term. I don't know.
Whatever floats your
Uh,
boat, bro.
so yeah, so I think that this is like 99% locked in that this is Billy, and is going to be Wiccan. And I think there's another piece to it of him already having magic, Casey.
Yeah, he does have a knowledge
I
and experience with magic by this point. Like that's, I don't know how one gets magic, okay,
Yes.
but like that to me, for him to be able to break the spell that Wanda put on Agnes, either he has to have studied up a ton, or he has to have something in him that allows him to do that. In my opinion, I don't know. I could be way off and way wrong. Typically, I'm way wrong.
Okay, so I think you're dead right though. I think the connection there is that of course it's his mom, right? Uh but I also think there's clues in here. They needed a certain number of witches, right? So like I said, a lot of people think that Deborah Jo Rupp's character, Mrs. Hart, got shapeshifted by Rio. I don't think that's the case. I think that is literally just Mrs. Hart, or Miss Davis, right?
Okay,
And she is. So I think the fifth wizard, the fifth witch, or whatever they need it, fifth magic user, is Wiccan. I think it is him. When they take off their shoes and they are in the shape of a pentagon here, his shoes are part of the pentagon, the shape of the door to the Witch's Road, while Mrs. Davis' shoes, all the way over here to the right, are not part of that pentagon. She was not magic. She is not actually the one that is the reason why the door opened. It's because Wiccan was in the house. That's my theory.
okay. My thoughts on old Kitty Form in there, right? So one, she's always gonna be Kitty Form. Like, just I know it's not her, but she played the hell out of that character for years. She's doing it again in that '90s show. Awesome. I don't trust her. Now this is my wild speculation. 99.765% of the time I am wrong, and this is probably going to be one of those times, and I acknowledge that. I never thought of the fact that she could be Rio shapeshifting, but I think if there's going to be a big bad that eventually reveals himself that has been trying to keep an eye on uh been trying to keep an eye on everything, to keep an eye on Agatha, right? The perfect person for it to be would be Mrs. Hart. Okay, and I think I don't know Deborah Jo Rupp at all, but the only things I've ever seen her, and she's played these like old motherly or grandmotherly characters. I would love to see her play a villain in some way, shape, or form, right? And I think she would probably love and relish the opportunity to do something like that. Like this, she's probably been typecast for some of these old motherly roles or whatever, and things of that nature. So for her to step outside of that role and that comfort zone might be something she might really be intrigued by, or she might say, "I want nothing to do with that." I don't know, but I think if there was going to be someone who wanted to keep an eye and stay close and keep an eye on Agatha, it would be her. I thought it was weird that they said they needed 5 or 4 or 5 or whatever it was. Agatha went directly to her, right, to uh to be that other person. She gets down. They get down in the basement. She apparently doesn't know the song that they're singing, which we're going to talk about that song in a minute. Yes, we will. Um, apparently she doesn't know the song. She's like, "What am I supposed to know this?" And she's trying to like, I don't trust her character. I just something's not right there. Now it could be maybe she is the it is Rio shapeshifting and being there. Maybe she's one of the Salem Seven, that's trying to stay close and keep an eye on things. But I don't trust that character.
Interesting. No, I think she was like the way I interpreted it was she wanted she didn't want to go to Rio with the black heart. So she made up a reason for her to fit into it by saying she's Mrs. Hart, right?
But they also
And
said they needed an
she's got a
earthquake.
green thumb because she's a gardener,
Yeah,
right? So I think that's part of what she's trying to pass him off as, and I think she just thought, maybe we have enough people that we can open it without that, and
but the thing is, the door didn't, like you said, the door didn't open until Teen gets down there after he's running from the Salem Seven, right? Which was kind of
yeah, so
spooky
I
as heck.
think he's the reason.
I
Yeah.
also love what's the black guy, Herb? Is that Herb? Uh, I love his reaction of seeing the Salem Seven out there, and he's just like, "Oh hell no!" And he's like, "I'm out. I'm done with this." Like he's like, I've played enough, and they've done enough to try and keep Agatha at bay for the last 3 years, and he's like, "You've been going through a true crime phase," so they were kind of just, they were just like, "Okay, whatever, we'll play along." But now there's like some serious people in robes and like that look spooky and scary. And he's like, "No, I'm done with this," and he dips out quick, and I love that because I could just see
Yeah.
him, someone else doing that. Like, no, I'm done. I've had enough of this. Going back to my house. Um,
Well, wouldn't you? I mean, for a while, you were under the influence of a witch with Wanda,
I'm moving out of
and
Westview.
then it's been 3 years, and your neighbor is still under the influence, and then you start seeing these creepy witches. Yeah,
I'm moving.
I'd be moved out.
So, I actually kind of would like to deliver mail in Westview. It looks like a nice place. Looks like the route to be pretty easy.
Yeah,
Um, so as a mailman, I wouldn't, seeing the mailbox there's kind of stuff. Very, very upsetting. Pick up your
you'd be
mail out of your box,
commuting though.
people.
That would be your job, right? Like you're not living there. You're
I would,
driving in to
I would move to
deliver.
Westview. I would move to Westview in a heartbeat. I guarantee you the
You
cost of living.
would?
I would. I guarantee you the cost of living would be much cheaper than um, Southern California. I think the cost of
Yeah,
living is
it's New
pretty low.
Jersey. Yeah.
I also think the fact that you had the pandemic and then you had the FBI and various other things quarantine the town because they had some horrible things going on. I imagine the cost of living is pretty low in Westview, so I think I could probably afford to get a house there on a city carrier salary. I'd move to Westview in a heartbeat. I just want to know what the winters are like. I need to know that. I need to know what I'm getting into. But if I'm Herb, Unless I'm making a ton of money there. After seeing the Salem Seven show up, I'm out. I'm out. I'm moving out of Westview. Maybe I move to Eastview and I commute. I don't know. Maybe there's a North and a Southview. Maybe I'm moving completely out of that, trying to get away. But where do you go? Because now you know there's witches, and as we talked about before, you know there's aliens and gods, and all these other things from the MCU. Like, where do you go that's safe at this point? Like there's no place to go.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of times too. It's like, you know, most of the stuff you're used to it in this world. I think at this point, it's like I remember people being like after Moon Knight. At one point in Moon Knight, like the sky rewinds, right? Like the sky, the stars and everything, like go like crazy, and like it rewinds to what it would look like years ago. And people are like, why? Like people are up looking at it and stuff, but people are like, why aren't they ever talking about it in other projects? I'm like, because they've been invaded by aliens multiple times. The sky rewinding is not in the top list of things that they have to worry about after that stops. Like at a certain point, they if nothing bad came from it, they're like, that was weird. That's Tuesday though in the MCU,
Look,
right? Like
people are still freaking out about the end of Eternals, which I still haven't seen. But apparently, there's this massive thing in the ocean. Like that's got to mess everything up, though. Like that has to have a ton of effects on tides and shipping lanes and all other kind of stuff. And apparently, no one's talking about that either.
well, here's the thing. They are talking. Well, okay. Spoilers, supposedly that whole thing is going to be a subplot in Captain America 4. So they will talk about it. The thing is, people don't even give it any time, I feel like, anymore. Like, Eternals has only come out less than 3 years ago. And it's like, people, because, like, in a normal MCU back before we had so many projects, 3 years would be sometimes the gap between
Yeah,
movies,
yeah.
you know? But nowadays, it's like, we're getting so many people are like, what, why haven't they talked about it? Well, they are, they will talk about it. And also they mentioned it in one of She-Hulk's screens when she's on the thing, but
Here's the
whatever.
thing that would freak me out the most. Though. Can deal with aliens, right? Can deal with Iron Man and his robots, and I can deal with witchcraft and magic. Okay, cool, whatever. The fact that there are gods, that gods exist. So, if you're telling me Loki and Thor, the god of thunder, exists, which means Odin exists, right? We somehow they know that to be true. What other gods are there that are true? What other demons are there that to be true? Like, have you ever seen the show?
Right.
Have you ever seen Lucifer?
No, I
Okay,
haven't. I've seen him appear in,
the
because it's a
Arrowverse.
DC
Yeah.
comic show actually, but I saw him appear in the Arrowverse.
Okay, so guy, it's a great show. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. The devil basically takes a vacation. He doesn't want to be the leader of hell anymore. He comes up to Los Angeles.
You have a type,
And
huh?
he runs a
Buffy,
bar.
Lucifer.
Look, I am straight as they come. Lucifer is a smoke show. This dude is a smoke show. And there were also a bunch of other sexy people on the show. But anyway, right? And eventually he ends up falling for someone and he turns into like a semi-police procedure where he ends up helping out this cop named Chloe.
Yeah.
Okay. The devil, he doesn't lie. He tells people who he is. Nobody believes him, honestly. Why would you believe anybody says he's the devil? Right? He's Lucifer. His name is actually Lucifer Morningstar. Like, he doesn't hide this. Okay. He sees a therapist played by Linda Harris, right? He goes to therapy, right? And there comes a point in one of the seasons, not to spoil it, but the show's over, right? It's been out for years, where she gets tired of him saying these things, right? And she's like, no more lies, no more, like, so he reveals himself to her. He shows his true devil face, right? And it is phenomenal because it's the end of one of the episodes and she falls completely silent because she literally is staring at the devil. Oh, By the way, he was sleeping with his therapist early in the show. So that means she has slept with the devil. Right. Now, we cut to another episode later. First, she doesn't want to. One of his henchmen is named Mazikeen, who's a demon. So the therapist became friends with Maze, but now she actually wants nothing to do with it because she realizes that when Maze was saying she was a demon and she was like the right hand to the devil, she was not lying. She was telling the truth. So she has to work through that with her. But she also has a conversation with Lucifer at some point because she's starting to realize that everything she had thought of or believed or didn't believe is now true. And then he talks about how he punished people in hell. And she asks him, like, how did you punish, like, Mussolini? What did you do to Hitler? Like, there are things that she starts running through, right? And in one of the earlier episodes, I think it might even be in the first or second episode, when he meets the detective, and he's there at the school, and they're going to see something about her kid, because her kid was getting picked on by a bully. So one of the things he can do is he can expose himself, not in that way. He can show his true self to people, right? So he goes up to this little girl and he tells her that one of the worst things in hell, one of the things in hell that they don't like the most is bullies. And he shows her like his true devil face and she freaks out. There was a scene where there's this dude on Hollywood Boulevard, because it's set in Los Angeles, about a guy who's like a street preacher and he's trying to say all these things and so on and so forth. And Lucifer's the guy's actually kind of on the right track, but then the guy gets a little perturbed because he's like, I'm not sharing my tip with you. And then Lucifer is like, one of the worst things in the world is to be a charlatan. And he exposes himself to this street preacher, which once again, you're staring at the actual devil. He freaks out and everything, and that guy comes back later. So I say all that to say, like I said, I can deal with aliens, magic, Iron Man, all these other things, and vibranium, and Wakanda's this country that has amazing technology we didn't know about, and all this other stuff. But now you're telling me there are gods, which means there might be demons. But we know of the Nordic gods. What about the Egyptian gods? What about the Christian gods? What about gods from all these, like...
The Egyptian gods actually are in Moon Knight, so yes, they exist as well.
What about the Roman gods? What about the ancient Greek gods? Like, you see what I'm saying? So, like my mind, I would probably have a brain aneurysm because you know some of these are real. Who do you worship? How do you choose to worship what you're going to worship? About the only thing who you can knock out is Scientology. F those guys. Like, at that point, you realize, like, Scientology is a fraud, right? But at the same time, like, where does your mind go with all this? Where do you, like, okay, I'm trying to go to work, and the Hulk had a fight with some dude, but he picked up my car and he threw it at the dude. Now I can't get to work. You know what? I can deal with that. I don't know if my insurance is gonna, like, pay me. We'll find a way. I'm sure that happens to other people. They can deal with that, right? We've dealt with the snap and the blip and the 5 years that happened and people coming back. But once again, there are gods that are real. Like, that would freak me out the most.
No, I agree. It would be, once you find out that that's real, right? It changes everything. So I could see that. Okay, let's talk about the song then. You wanted to talk about the song. Give me your thoughts here.
Okay. So first off, I didn't know that they had premiered this song at D23.
Yes.
I wish I would have known that because I had not seen it or heard it. I didn't watch anything from D23. I saw that they had some trailers and previews and this and that, and I read up on some stuff, but I think I told you before, I saw a trailer like a couple weeks ago or whatever. It was getting closer. And I was like, because they already had me hooked. I was already interested in seeing this show. So I really didn't need to see more, but I got bored on my lunch break a couple weeks ago, looked up more. And stuff. So they go in the basement and they start singing this song. I loved Agatha All Along. I thought it was fantastic. These two who made this song are great. I didn't realize Catherine Hahn had a voice and could sing, right?
Mm-hmm.
and then you bring these other women into this song. I've listened to this song many times on like YouTube and YouTube Music since. I love this song. And then I saw like, oh,
It's catchy.
they did a live performance of this song like at D23. I'm like, shit, how did I not notice this? And then I watched that performance earlier today. And not only that, but Catherine Hahn has a great cackle.
Yes.
Like we saw it during Agatha All Along when she talked about she killed Sparky too, and then she, at the end of the D23 version, she cackles again, and I'm like, one, we need to get more of this witch cackling. Like, two, I didn't know she was this talented, but yes, I'm digging the song Down the Witch's Road.
Yeah, it's a good song. It was something that I feel like was very surprisingly catchy. I feel like it was something that I think I had heard it during the D23 thing, but totally forgot about it until I listened to this because it sounded familiar to me. So I think I did watch part of that from D23. But yeah, no, it's a good song, and I thought it was funny too when Mrs. Hart or Miss Davis, right, is going down the steps. She's kind of like singing it to herself again, which is funny.
Apparently,
You can you
Agatha.
can
Sorry, apparently Agatha was humming the song earlier in the show.
yes, when she was driving to the scene, right, like to the scene of the crime or something like that. It could also mean, right, like you said, she says she doesn't know the song Mrs. Hart,
Mm-hmm.
and she's humming it as she's going down the steps. It's like either she just learned it, right, or maybe she's letting on that she does know the song. It can play into two different ways there too, so I do like that they're kind of keeping that going as well. uh Real quick too, I really just want to say I really enjoyed the scene when she is snapping out of it, and it's the her stripping away her previous looks, and these are all like the looks that she had
Yeah,
throughout
yeah.
WandaVision. I thought that was really cool.
Especially the black and white.
Really like that.
Throwing the black and white
Yeah,
in
the
there.
black and white version was really cool to see.
And I do like, I liked her outfit after she went back into the house and then managed to
I thought
change.
you were going to say after she was done stripping, and I was like, oh, okay.
Look, Catherine Hahn's a very beautiful woman, but that's not like it's a Disney show. We're not. If this were like
I was
HBO,
surprised that they showed what they did. Yeah.
yeah, that was a little surprising for a Disney show. If this were an HBO show, we would have got a full shot of everything. But it's not. But no, the kind of, she even talks about bringing her purple back or whatever when she was talking to Rio. But her whole coat and the purple thing there. What did you think
Yeah.
of these three other witches that she had to go find and uh and gather up for the coven?
Um, I'm not sure what to make of them yet, right? Like we learn that well, we learn they all kind of have like these downsides, I feel like, right? Like we learn that uh the one that's like a beauty
She's a scammer. She's looking at
saleswoman,
like 800
she's a
counts.
scammer.
Yeah, she's looking at like 800 federal
Yeah.
counts of something. So she's gonna spend the rest of her life in
Yeah,
jail.
so or run for president. And so you do have that. Then you have the other one
Who's a
who was
former
like a
cop?
security
Yeah, she's a
guard,
former
yeah,
cop.
former cop.
Got kicked off the force
Um,
probably. It looks like for probably being too rough and violent.
yeah, I feel like we don't know enough about her to really have an opinion on me. We do have. I think the one that we know the most about really was the um The one played by Patty LuPone.
The older one,
Yeah,
who was
I feel like
the
that's the one we
fortune
know the
teller
most
there.
about.
She's doing the fortune telling gimmick there.
Yes. I just thought her exchange with her and everything was great too. In the, she goes in, I guess, doing this fake story to see if she would be able to catch on, to see if she's actually like a magical person. And Agatha puts on that voice. This role gives Catherine Hahn a lot to work with, so I think she's just having a good time with it too. But no, so far I don't think we know enough about. It's Lila, right? And Jennifer and Alice are the ones. I really want to know more about Rio Vidal though, and Aubrey Plaza. So
Aubrey
I'm
Plaza's
hoping
character has me
next
really
week
intrigued.
we get that.
Like her history
Yeah,
with
same.
Agatha, what her whole purpose is, what's going on, what she's really about. Yeah, she is like number one for me. Like I need more of her. Give me all of her you can. And once again, I don't trust Debbie Julia.
Anything else about the episodes?
So
they're on the road now.
Wild, reckless speculation time. I think we will see Wanda. I think we will get Wanda back in the series.
I'm gonna say we don't. Now, do you think that they didn't show her face because she's not really dead, or did you have a theory about why they didn't show her face?
I think
or
she's dead. I think she'll be resurrected somehow. But and I get it because you kind of have to tie it back to WandaVision. But I think they just mentioned.
And there's rumors she's going to be in the Vision show too. So.
And obviously, a lot of the stories have come out where she's talked about recently. So either it's older stuff that was republished, or newer conversations with Elizabeth Olsen saying she would love to resurrect the character again, but it would have to be under the right circumstances. Obviously, I think she's been denying that she's in WandaVision, or sorry, that she's in Agatha All Along. Obviously, the cast and crew have been really tight-lipped about where it goes from here. But I think we do get Wanda back in this series. I think we get Elizabeth Olsen back as Wanda, as the Scarlet Witch in this series.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't feel confident that she was brought back on. I think they were cleverly kind of shooting around her by not showing the face and getting the message across that it's her without showing us her.
Now that could be
so they don't have to pay her, or so the budget doesn't have to get ballooned.
Yeah. Now that could be that maybe they're holding her off until the very end, right?
True.
I mean,
true. She could be like a last shot or something,
or like the last 10 minutes or something, like one of those. Maybe she was busy. She couldn't film earlier in the episode, like earlier stuff that was filmed earlier, so that's why we got what we did, and they had to work around that. Or maybe they really just wanted to, keep everything close to the chest and keep it secret and not film her until the last possible minute, so because I'm sure with all the stuff that leaks out there, I'm sure at some point, unless Disney and Marvel paid them off really well, we would have got some sort of a picture or something of Elizabeth Olsen
right
somewhere. Like, even if it was something as simple as like, oh, she happens to be in Atlanta this weekend while they're filming, in Georgia, right? Because I think this, just like a lot of the other stuff, I think I saw the Peach there. It was filmed in the state of Georgia, which is probably somewhere in or around Atlanta, something like that. I would imagine. I don't know. Could be other places, but if I had to guess, your major city would probably be Atlanta. And I know like Tyler Perry he bought an old army base down there and he turned it into his studio. He bought the whole thing after they decommissioned it, and that's where he actually has made it into a bunch of studios. So there's a ton of production that goes on for him. Most, if not all, of his production goes on there, and I'm sure, he might rent
Yep.
it out, other things, and other people do production. So, like I said, unless they pay them, unless the House of Mouse, either security either did their thing and people are in Mickey's jail or and suffering, or they were paid off really well, we would have seen something by now. But there's always a chance that they did manage to keep something really secret until you know.
Yeah. We'll see.
Do we have a
We'll
title for
see.
next week's episode?
No. No, we don't. Premieres on September 25th.
Marvel's back on their BS with like one sentence synopsises as well.
Yeah, I didn't read them on the show here. I guess let me pull them up real quick.
It's back on the same Marvel bullcrap of just like one sentence.
Yeah, they start traveling on the road or something like that, right? Let's see what we got here. Agatha All Along, episode 1. In small town Westview, Detective Agnes' murder case sends her down a road that changes everything. Episode 2. With old foes in hot pursuit, Agatha and Teen gather a desperate coven to walk the witch's road.
That one's actually a little more descriptive than I anticipated.
Yeah.
When do you think we'll find out his identity or his name?
I hope they don't drag it out too long. I feel like though they're gonna do it like a finale or right before the finale reveal, just because he is like I always wondered how it was gonna be with them trying to keep it secret. Like if he says if he was gonna try to hide who he is, he's not hiding who he is at all. He's trying to tell her who he is, and it's blanked out.
Okay. Do you think Agatha can hear and see what he's saying, and we just us as the audience cannot? Because at some point she did say interesting, so I don't know if she knew that's interesting because of the name he said.
It's interesting because she can't hear it, because she tries to turn up the radio when they're in the car, and it's like drowning him out, and she's trying to turn it up, I think, to hear if her hearing's going, but she's noticing that she's hearing other stuff than him, and I think that's when she says interesting. So I think she has no clue who he is, and I think it's important for her not to know who he is right now, because
that might change her journey.
She hates Scarlet Witch right now, right? Like she spits on that where she was, and I think that maybe that would kind of put a damper on the relationship.
Look, in all fairness, she deserved what she got from Scarlet Witch, right? But can you blame her for not liking Scarlet Witch? For not liking
No, I can't blame her for it. I'm just saying that, like, for her to want him on she doesn't really want him on the road either, but I think she's starting to realize how helpful he is, right? Like when he steps up and pulls up the article about the one lady's crimes and stuff, she starts to realize that this guy can be helpful for her in getting this stuff set up. So I do think that she'll start to have this bond, and then she'll find out that it is Scarlet Witch's kid, and it'll be like this conflict a little bit within her.
Okay, one other question for you. I'm not sure if you've seen all the trailers. Maybe it's not even in the show, but one of the things in one of the trailers, Aubrey Plaza's character Rio is talking to someone, probably Agatha, where she brings up the bodies are starting to pile up. Who do you think we lose And do you think we start losing people in this episode coming up? Do you think maybe as we're going along the road, like we start losing them one by one somewhere down the road? Or because Marvel's also been known to like film scenes that mean absolutely nothing to throw them in trailers to get people like me speculating and figuring stuff out. I don't need. You might not have even noticed that because I know you said you didn't see some of the trailers. So,
I didn't know. I've only watched the one trailer. I don't even. I watched it once,
so if I
don't
spoiled
know.
that for you, I apologize. Like that was not my intention.
No, it's fine. Like you said, it could be cut. It could be cut a certain way. So, do I think people will die? No, I don't. Maybe I'm just naive. I guess maybe they will, but I don't think any of the maybe Deborah Jo Rupp's character. Maybe.
I could see. So okay, 9 episodes. We got 2 down. 7 left. 2 of them.
6 weeks left after this.
Yeah, two of them are the finale.
Last
2
week,
episodes.
yeah.
So there's 5 episodes between here and the finale. I could see a situation where we might start losing one an episode or something like that along the way, because I don't know what the witch's road entails, right? I know it's dangerous. They talked about people don't survive the road. Agatha has done it once apparently already. But the other witches in her coven were kind of freaked out when she brought up the idea of going down the road. Also, even though that door was closed, the Salem Seven are still after them, or at least after Agatha, which I think would mean they're after the rest of the coven as well. So I think not only does she have the dangers of what's on the road ahead of her, but she has to be wary of what's behind her trying to catch up with her. And I think that could cause for some dangerous results, and we could start seeing, as Rio put it, the bodies are starting to pile up.
Yeah. I don't know. I that's interesting. Maybe the bodies are starting to pile up means more to like people affected by Agatha. Like we're talking, maybe that's a reference to her son, Nicholas Scratch. Maybe that's a reference to Wanda dying as well. You know, maybe it's stuff of like not so much stuff that happens on this, but like
has been happening,
and maybe including some of those people. But
and maybe,
just like hey, almost like a everybody around you type of thing.
And maybe it's been an ongoing thing since the time in Salem. You know, like over the years, you know, people around her seem to mysteriously perish over and over, and that's been going 200-300 years now. So yeah, after 200 or 300 years, you're bound to have a body count.
Right. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's it. I've really enjoyed these 2 episodes. Like I said, 5 minutes in, they had me hooked. I'd watch that true crime show in a heartbeat, but definitely looking forward to what's coming. WandaVision has been at the top of my list from all the shows I've watched. She-Hulk was number 2. I love the comedy in there. I also found out I liked strong, muscly women, which I didn't know before that, but that's okay. Loki was behind that because I think the two seasons of that was great. Did a lot of things.
Yep.
But I think so far for me, this is supplanted Loki, and this has the potential to disrupt the top 2 as well because I love the character so far.
Interesting. I have Loki as number 1. I would probably go WandaVision 2. I don't know. I think so far this show has been good. I think episode 2 was better than episode 1 for me, and it's left me curious on where they go from here now. Like I felt like it got stronger as we went, especially I think episode 2 actually got stronger as we went as well. and it left off at a good spot. I'm glad they did 2 episodes this week, or else I would probably have felt a little underwhelmed. This is also a show that I haven't really been like looking forward to. I've had so many other things going on that I've been focused on, different stuff at the time. So this show really snuck up on me, and now it's here, and we'll see how it goes. 9 episodes. I'm glad this has more episodes than some of the other shows we've covered, because I feel like I need it. And so far, both have been pretty decently long, 40 some minutes, like a normal TV show.
Yeah.
Not, some of the shows we've gotten have been like 30 minutes
Between
or less. So
some will go like 32, and then
yeah.
you'll have one like 56. And you're like, wait,
Right.
I think if they keep it 40 to 45,
there you
I think we're good.
Yeah, I'm always an advocate for do it however long you need to tell the story. But sometimes I do side-eye episodes that are like 20 minutes, because I'm like, you're going to do a little bit more,
So let me ask you this. When did they, I know this production has been crazy. We talked about it a little earlier. When did they actually film this?
Last year, 2023.
Okay, so there was actually like a 2-year gap from when they announced it to when they started filming? Because this was actually supposed to
probably
release last year, right? Or the year before, and then it kept getting pushed back.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. I think filming got pushed due to either the strike. Hold on. When did it start filming?
Yeah, the COVID and the strike probably just really...
Filming began in January of 2023. So then you have the strike.
Oh, that started in what,
May
March?
2023. But it said it did not impact.
I think there were rules. I think one of the rules was stuff that might have already been in production to a certain point could continue to go. Like there were some weird rules with some of that, or stuff that was happening in certain places could continue to go until it was finished, but there were some things that couldn't. And then because there were 2 strikes that happened like at the same time, that could really have messed it up.
Yeah. They did reshoots at the beginning of January, it sounds like, or
This
around
year?
there. So, yeah. So far, the ratings, critic reviews,
I think 70,
80% or whatever. Fan reviews have been a little lower. Don't know if those are ever review bombed or not anymore, so who knows.
Most of the stuff that I've seen has been in the same range, like a 7 to 8 range or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's probably where I would put it too. Like, I'm not like hyped out of my mind, but I'm not like disappointed. So it's like, like a 7, right?
One thing I was gonna say, one thing I've seen has been about music stuff, saying the music's been great throughout. Like I think a lot of people have seen the first 4 episodes, I think, so far, or a couple.
Oh, like critics?
Yeah, a lot of reviewers I think have seen the first 4 somehow. So, I think the special effects haven't been bad either. I know Marvel definitely had some issues with them in various other shows. So.
I feel like this is an easy show for that, because all you're doing like is sometimes like the magical touches. A lot of, you don't have to worry about a guy in an iron suit or somebody hulking out.
I think more of it has been practical.
I think it'll be a little easier.
So far. The fight scene, stuff like that. It looks like it's been a lot more practical. Now, as we get more and maybe more magic comes along, that might be where they have to, their visual effects team has to put them more.
Alrighty, well, let's start plugging some stuff before we leave here. Casey and I will be back talking Agatha All Along episode 3 next week, but also in October 25th, our season 2 coverage of Films for the Very First Time, the podcast where Casey and I alternate showing each other films that the other one has not seen, kicks off our second season October 25th, where we discuss 3 episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So make sure that you check that out over on Films for the Very First Time. As we've already recorded a few of those. Those are releasing almost at the end of our Agatha All Along coverage. We're very excited to be back in gear with that. I launched a new podcast called The Fantasy Folk. I don't know if I've plugged that on this show yet or not, but Ron, who's been a frequent contributor onto the Infinity Saga and Beyond, and myself also love a lot of fantasy stuff. So we've been talking Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. So far over there, we're going to talk Game of Thrones stuff, House of the Dragon, the new Game of Thrones spinoff next year.
There's another spinoff coming?
Yeah, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, is releasing next year. They have a lot of spinoffs in the works for Game of Thrones. So,
are you, or do you have any plans of going into like fantasy games on that one?
Yeah, probably. We're what we've started doing a little bit was at the beginning of our episodes. Right now, we kind of say like, hey, are you doing anything fantasy related this week before, we dive into the episode? And we're both playing The Witcher 3. It's one of my favorite games, and he's playing it for the first time. So we've just kind of been talking for like 5 minutes before we dive in, like stuff like that. He's a big Skyrim fan.
I need to
like
pick both of those back up. I started on Witcher 3 and Skyrim, and then I get engulfed for a little bit, and then I stop for whatever reason, like life gets in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing that sucks with both of those is not that the games suck in any way. They're hard to pick back up after you've been off of them for like a few months, because you got to remember what controls are. You got to remember what quest you're doing, where you're at in the story, and then sometimes you're like, maybe I should just start all over. But they're such epic games. It's like, do I really
they're long.
Do I really want to start all over? Or like...
Yeah, so we're probably going to do an episode based on The Witcher maybe once he's finished playing. We'll see. We've got some ideas. Our plan eventually is to do like a live stream of us doing D&D sometime, because that's something we've started doing as well. So maybe one time we'll live stream that or something. Yeah, so that's what we're working on over there. So make sure you follow the Fantasy Folk over on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And then over on Elseworlds, our DC fan podcast, I won't be on this episode, but Chris and a few other people are going to be talking Joker Folie à Deux, and that releases like in 2 weeks or whatever. So, if you're a fan of Joker and you see the sequel, we'll have coverage for it, even though I'm not, going to see that movie. So we have stuff in the works.
Plans on seeing that one? Or?
Not in theaters, no.
Did you watch the first one at all? Or?
Yeah, I watched it on Blu-ray.
I have it on disc as well. I just haven't got around to watching it.
It's all right. It's not. It's so much hyperbole about that movie. Like, there's people that say it's so great. Then you have the people that were like, it's incel stuff, and like that's gonna make people were really weird about the movie. Like, it's gonna make white incels feel, emboldened or whatever. You're like, what? And then nothing actually happened.
Well, once they announced that they were bringing Harley Quinn into this one, people went crazy too, because obviously their relationship in the comics and video games and Batman the Animated Series, and they made adult versions of it on HBO, which I didn't know about. Like that was.
Oh yeah, the cartoon. Yeah.
Like they
it's funny.
But they've had an interesting relationship, to say the least. You can call it many different things: troubling, toxic, abusive. I don't know all about it, so I'm not laying any judgment. But I would say interesting, to say the least, of the Joker and Harley Quinn's relationship. And a lot of people were really wondering what's going to happen with their relationship in this and how that's going to be. So.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about it over there. So that's something that'll be coming down the pipe early October on the Logjam Media Podcasting Network. So I think that's everything I have to plug right now. Of course, we have, more Star Wars stuff coming in December, and before that, we'll have some more episodes of our Star Wars podcast, The Pod Awakens, so you can check that out as well.
Did you do a soccer one recently about the new hire for the men's national team?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Yes. Mauricio Pochettino is the U.S. men's national team manager. And over on Stateside Soccer Show with my buddy Logan, we talked about his hiring and what it means for U.S. soccer and all that good stuff. So that has also been talked about on our network. We have random sports podcasts on our network as well. All right, Casey, thank you so much for jumping on to talk about the world of WandaVision again and Agatha Harkness. You'll be back to talk episode 3 through 9 as we continue every week talking about Agatha All Along.
Going down the road.
But thank you, listeners. You can like and subscribe to us here on the YouTube channel. You can rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time.